Welcome to Moon Monkey Podcast. In this episode we'll be discussing Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. But for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, here's a brief rundown of what happened.
So the plot of this film takes place 30 years following the Return of the Jedi. And we start the film on Jakku, where we see Poe Dameron receiving plans, or a map, to the location of Luke Skywalker, who since the events of the last film has gone missing. Nobody knows where he is. He's off somewhere in the galaxy. He receives these plans. Meanwhile, the First Order, which is the replacement for the Empire in this film, comes down to the planet, and we see a stormtrooper attack on the inhabitants of this village on Jakku. Poe Dameron is captured. He's taken up to the Imperial cruiser, where he meets a stormtrooper who's kind of had a change of heart and wants to leave the stormtrooping business. The two of them manage to escape and land back on Jakku. We're also introduced to our primary character, I guess, the main character of this, going to be the main character of this trilogy, I imagine, which is Rey, a young girl who's a scavenger. She was abandoned on the planet as a young child, doesn't really know who her ancestors are, who her parents are. But yeah, she basically gets bundled up in this chase away from the First Order and gets in with Finn. They start together looking for Luke Skywalker. The two of them manage to escape from Jakku, escape from the First Order on the Millennium Falcon, and that's where we meet the first big kind of retro nostalgia moment of the film, when they meet up with Han and Chewie, who are still smuggling, still doing their thing around the galaxy. They meet up with Han and Chewie, and all four of them together. Okay, so they come down to the jungle planet, where they find a lady there, Maz Kanata, who tells Rey that she's kind of the chosen one. She finds Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, and now it's her mission to find Luke Skywalker and hand this lightsaber back. The main villain in the whole film is a guy called Kylo Ren. We first see him in the attack on Jakku at the beginning, wearing a mask, very Darth Vader-esque. He looks up to Vader. Spoiler, one of the big plot points of the film is this Kylo Ren is actually Han Solo's son, Han and Leia's son. And he's going to be the main villain, I imagine, again, for most of the film. He's actually under the orders of another guy who's called Snoke. Is it Captain Snoke, or...?
It's Supreme Leader Snoke.
Supreme Leader Snoke, who basically plays the part of the Emperor in this film. Cut a long story short, they basically end up... The First Order has built a giant Starkiller base, which is essentially a Death Star, just on a much larger scale, so big that it's like planet size. It has its own weather system. It's snowing on the surface of this thing. Like, they actually land on it. At first, I think you see it early on in the film, you think it is a planet, and then it turns out like, oh, actually, this thing it's actually a Starkiller base. It's actually a space station, which destroys planets. And so the finale of the film involves Poe Dameron leading a strike force to attack this thing, and Rey going off to meet Luke Skywalker, which will lead into the second film. As you might have noticed through this kind of synopsis, there were a lot of points of this which were similar to things that happened in A New Hope or The Empire Strikes Back. I know a lot of people have said, yeah, maybe this film was too similar to that. They were retreading the same ground. I mean, I noticed a couple of things that I noticed straight off the bat were the desert planet at the beginning and Rey's story being similar to that of Luke Skywalker in that she's the chosen hero. But this is similar in a lot of movies. And the finale of the film being the Starkiller base, or in A New Hope, the Death Star. Again, that being similar. I have actually seen people run through a lot more comparisons, and if you really wanted to go into it, there are a lot of things which you could say were, similarities between the two films. But yeah, in terms of this one following on from those three films, I think it's good to be back in that kind of universe again. And it's definitely like kind of a continuation of the story from Return of the Jedi. Whereas I think with the prequels, you were going backwards, which was maybe what disappointed people. They wanted to see the story continue, whereas that was kind of taking them back or off to the side, showing them something that happened before. What did you make of the story?
I mean, I thought it was good. It was good that Star Wars was back. It was so anticipated. It was a big moment for me. It was emotional. I've still not recovered. I'll probably see it another few times, and I'll still not have. It probably won't help the situation of me grieving, but about what happened. But yeah, it was good that it was back. And a lot of the criticism about the prequels were it's not like Star Wars, and some of the criticism for Episode 7 is it's too much like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So you've kind of, I suppose, like you can't please everybody.
I mean, this film feels like Star Wars in that a lot of the locations are similar. Like you have the desert, like I think we ran through. You have Jakku is very much like Tatooine. You have the planet that Maz Kanata's on is very much like Endor. And then you also have the snow planet, the Starkiller Base.
Yeah. So you've got all that, and I mean, the Starkiller Base is obviously like a huge Death Star. They even poke fun at it. They've got the hologram. They've got the massive Starkiller Base and the tiny Death Star.
Yeah, I mean, I think even writing that story, they were aware of the fact that they've done that plot twice.
It was kind of a safe bet, and also makes the First Order look a bit inept with the constant building of spherical death contraptions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're getting funding for these things, but whoever's giving it to them needs to stop, because that's like, or who's insuring them? Because that's twice now they've been destroyed.
I don't know if you worry about insurance in that kind of world. But it was quite cool that we saw the reaction of the people on the New Republic planets when Starkiller Base fired. You had them witnessing the power of the space station coming towards them, and you knew that they were going to die, or they were. That was kind of interesting, which we didn't get in A New Hope with the Death Star firing Alderaan. We didn't get that, so it was interesting to see that point of view. We saw a lot more from the Empire's or the First Order's point of view with the Stormtrooper attack on Jakku at the beginning, and Finn and Kylo Ren was a much more kind of ambiguous character than Darth Vader was, say, in the first trilogy.
Yeah, like it was a fantastic, like the opening of the film was fantastic with the Stormtrooper attack on Jakku, because like you say, it's something that you haven't seen before in other films.
And the blood on the Stormtrooper helmet, that worked really well for me. I thought it was a really cool image. That I wasn't expecting in a Disney film. Really, I wasn't expecting the blood and the kind of opening scene of a
there was
Disney
kind of
Star
like
Wars film.
a lot of kind of emotional things like that, which was kind of an emotional moment, but without like the John Williams score. Like the original trilogy had a lot of kind of emotional moments, but they were really pushing for them. Like whenever there's a moment in the other films where this is meant to be emotional, the score starts welling up, you get a real sense of, oh, this is supposed to be a sad moment. But that was something where it was kind of very subtle, but kind of really quite effective. Because it was, like there wasn't a lot of kind of pushing it like, hey, this is a really cool scene. They just did it, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, it was a cool scene.
Yeah.
Even Kylo Ren stops a laser fire midair.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. We never seen that before. Who knew that a Jedi or a Sith could do that? And it's like there's a lot of force in the film.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the kind of religious kind of force, it's not a forceful film. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in it. But I mean, there is a lot of similarities still.
There were things that you hadn't seen before. I would like to say, like, with that, there wasn't as much CG as in the last couple of films that there's been. Like, this film seemed to be going back to a more like practical effects.
Yeah, everything was more tactile.
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously like CG involved with the X-Wings flying around and like the space stuff, but it felt more real. Another cool thing that I've heard mentioned by other people as well is you actually get to see inside a TIE fighter very early on in the film when Finn
and there's two people in it. Always imagined one.
Yeah, because you get it's one like pilot and one gunner, I think. So it's very much like the World War II planes. That's one of the things that's great about this universe that they like called on so much from either other films or from like history. So, for example, like the Trench Run is very much based on the Dam Busters and things that happened like historically. I know George Lucas is a big fan of World War II films. I think he actually did a film which was like a World War II flying ace film.
Right.
I can't remember what it was called, Red Tails or something. But I know he's really into that. And the same with the Jedi are kind of based on the samurai. Same kind of helmet with Darth Vader, lightsabers, katanas. So yeah, this is one thing which like really helps when you're writing this kind of story, is that it's related to things that you do know. So even though it's a fantasy world, you can kind of in your mind, it feels realistic. It's not like really out there. Yeah. I can't imagine this ever happening. Yeah. That's why it seems realistic. Like even with the guns, like the lasers and things, it's like a gunfight. It's like a cowboys and Indians situation. Yeah. But yeah, I thought the plot was solid. It was just that if you've seen New Hope and Empire, there'll be moments which you definitely will see like, yeah, that's either a direct callback or an homage, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, there was like BB-8 on Jakku as essentially R2-D2 on Tatooine, wandering around with a message or the plans. And like when they go and visit Maz Kanata, it's essentially like the Mos Eisley Cantina, where they go to find the Millennium Falcon and A New Hope to get off Tatooine in the first place. And Rey is on Tatooine, she's got the helmet on, and it's like Luke Skywalker's helmet. There's just loads of similarities, and it's kind of like a safe bet to do it and kind of call back to all those things and have Starkiller Base, because that's what people probably want, and it gives that sense of nostalgia, and it also gives the same kind of feelings to maybe a younger audience that's going to see it for the first time. Yeah.
One of the kind of big plot points later on, like big spoiler for this part, but was Kylo Ren having to kill his father, Han Solo. Han Solo is sent to pick up his son. Leia tells him, like, go for our son.
It's not just like picking him up after his after-school club.
The after-school Sith recital.
But yeah, she was like, bring our son back. And when Han and Leia finally got back together and the old music plays, old theme music of them together, like, that was pretty emotional. Yeah. I was getting a bit glassy. I was getting a bit, that got to me too. But yeah, she sent him to get back Ben Solo.
Yeah.
And back Ben Solo.
But that's one of the things I liked as well, the fact that thematically it like tied in with the first films, like it was all about family and family relationships.
It's a big space soap opera.
Yeah, because in the first trilogy, it's really about Luke and Vader's relationship, like the father and son relationship, or even like Ben Kenobi and Luke Skywalker, like the master pupil relationship. Whereas in this, you have similar relationships playing off, but just with different characters. So you kind of have, again, like father and son in that moment. Possibly spoilers for the end here. The final scene of the movie, we see Rey and Luke Skywalker. Now, a lot of people are saying it's most likely that Rey is going to turn out to be Luke Skywalker's daughter. I've heard other theories on this, but that's probably the most likely.
Yeah, like there's loads of theories that she could just be like another prophecy, midichlorians, like Anakin Skywalker was. But I don't really like that theory because I don't think people are really loved the fact that Anakin Skywalker was just from midichlorians. Yeah. But like she could be, there's a lot of theories that she could be from anybody. She could be from like the Kenobis or
I like the idea of her being Luke Skywalker's daughter, because I think it's not identical to the original, because the original was like a father-son, but the father was a bad guy and the son is trying to be the good guy. Whereas this would be different because Luke Skywalker is obviously, he is a good guy. He's a Jedi. So if she was his daughter, it would be a Jedi, training his daughter to be another Jedi. I'm not sure quite how that works. There obviously wouldn't be the tension that Luke and Vader had with Luke and Rey.
I mean, I don't know, like, there's still, like, there's loads of theories, and we won't really know till it's
the the other thing is, episode. Like, do Rey and Kylo Ren have a relationship? Like, are they cousins?
Well, they'd at least...
they would be cousins.
If that way, would be cousins. Or is Rey Kylo Ren's brother? Is Rey just completely... somebody we've not met yet, maybe a Jedi heritage or something, we don't know. But it's interesting for the future. Like, I think like this film definitely it was a safe bet in the way that it had a lot of nostalgic callbacks, but also it's all about building for the next film and building the new characters, and all the new characters were really great. We never really discussed the cast, which we should have done, because like they were all the new characters were pretty good. I felt like they were anyway. It was a solid adventure film, I think. Yeah. Like there's nothing you could really
there's nothing you could even really complain about in this plot. There's a few moments which are really like huge coincidences, like meeting certain characters at certain points and things that happen, which is, oh, this thing just so happened to be there, which pushes the plot forward. But really, like, there's nothing you could complain about.
You say that about a lot of movies.
Yeah, there's nothing you complain like that was ridiculous, I don't think. And also, like, the main thing about the plot is it's entertaining. So even if there are like plot holes or things that are a little odd, because the plot's so entertaining, you're so wrapped up in that story and those characters that's kind of propelling it forward.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to talk about the cast?
Yeah, let's talk about the cast. We had Poe Dameron, played by Oscar Isaac, who kind of disappeared out of the film a bit. He was kind of the central one to begin with, and you were like, is it going to be about Poe Dameron? And then he kind of disappears, you know, the TIE fighter crashes, we don't really see him till later on. He's reunited with his droid, so, you know, it's a nice moment.
That's the thing, that kind of, he's the first main character you're introduced to, and then he does kind of disappear and appears at a couple of points later on in the film.
But a lot of people are thinking he's kind of going to replace maybe Han Solo in a way with this kind of... He's a good pilot, which gets told to us multiple times during the film. Anytime we see Poe Dameron, he's the best pilot in the universe, basically. Yeah.
I suppose, like... Yeah, in this film, there was a huge cast in this film, and because Han Solo was in the film, you couldn't have really had screen time for Han Solo as much as they needed to have, and have Poe Dameron play a big role as well. So that was one thing that I felt about the cast, kind of... Yeah, there were a couple of them that were like...
It's building it for the next one, though.
Yeah.
Like, he still was in it a reasonable amount and had a big part to play.
Yeah.
He was blowing up a lot of stuff.
But Oscar Isaacs did do like a great job, I thought, of playing that role. I didn't like him at first, but like as the film went... Like as I saw him like later on in the film, I thought like, okay...
Because you recognised him from Ex Machina.
I recognised him from Ex Machina... And kind of, he didn't strike me straight away as, like, a good guy. I thought, like, oh, something weird about this guy.
That's what you think it was, isn't it?
I think, I think it was, like, I must have just recognised him. I didn't recognise him at all, because he had a beard in Ex Machina. But I think what it was
him with the beard building robots.
Subconsciously, I must have been thinking, like, oh, that's that guy who did, the horrible experiments with that robot. But yeah, when obviously he's doing a really good job of acting, and he is acting like the good guy, super pilot, but just something about his look, I think he'd be great. I think he'd do a great job playing a villain. Like, this isn't like in a bad way, but he has a face which, if you saw him as a villain, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a really kind of creepy look.
I thought he worked well as a good pilot, and he was as a hero, kind of, as one of the heroes in the film.
Like, he's very much more a kind of ambiguous character. Like, he is a good guy in this film, but I think he could do either or. Right. Like, if we compare him, like, the other two main roles in this film were Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, and John Boyega, who plays Finn. And those two, like, when you see them, even when you see them in interviews, like, always smiling, always happy. I feel like there's no way they could play a villain.
I feel like this is a personal attack on Oscar Isaac, and I don't want it to turn into one.
No, I'm not attacking him, but I'm saying, like...
You're just saying his look.
I think he could play a villain or a hero equally as well. Oh. I think Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, if you saw them as villains, you just wouldn't be credible. Because it'd be like, they're too happy. They look like, they're definitely on the good side.
Well, like, let's talk about Finn, John Boyega, who was in Attack the Block, which is a film I'd really like.
Yeah, Attack the Block's really good if you haven't seen it. Yeah. I would definitely recommend that. Like, a really good comedy sci-fi film.
Yeah. I think the guy from Adam and Joe directed it.
Yeah.
Joe from Adam and Joe.
Yeah. But it's a really good, like, kind of low-key sci-fi film with like aliens attacking.
I'd recommend Attack the Block.
Street block.
But yeah, John Boyega was really good in this. I felt like to begin with, he wasn't working as well. But once him and Han got together, and he was very good. He had a lot of humour in the film. I felt like that was pretty good. He was decent with a lightsaber too. But I really liked the moment when it was. I'm trying to convince BB-8 to support his theory about him being not a member of the New Order, First Order, sorry. And they did the little thumbs up. Yeah. And BB-8 does the...
Flicks out the lighter.
Yeah, that was a nice moment. But yeah, there was a lot of humour in it, and I thought like Rey and Finn and Han and all that had a lot of humour.
Yeah.
It was quite a funny film. It was more humour than I expected.
John Boyega was really good. Daisy Ridley was really good.
Daisy Ridley was the best thing on screen.
Like both her and John Boyega kind of relative unknowns, like even though they've done TV work before, and John Boyega's done like a couple of films maybe before. But yeah, they're not like big name stars, but like both of them just were amazing in this film. And kind of straight away, like one of the things with the film, people were worrying, like, are people going to take to these characters as much as they took to the original, like, three, like Luke, Leia, and Han? And I think, like, straight away, like, you're with them, like, a couple of minutes, and already you're, like, totally behind Rey. Like, when the first time you see Rey, I think she's scavenging for, like, stuff off the ship.
Yeah, she's in a old Imperial ship, and she's taking parts away.
You see her scavenging, so straight away you're like, okay, this is like, she's really tough. Then you see her bartering with the stuff she's got, so it's like, she's mentally tough.
She's a total self-sufficient character. I mean, she rescues John Boyega, she fixes the Millennium Falcon, she saves BB-8, she's piloting ships, she doesn't need anybody.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, she's a really good character, and she was like the best thing on screen. And Daisy Ridley will probably be in everything now, because she put in such a good performance.
Yeah, she did do a great job of acting in this film. We also had like a lot of returning cast in the film. Actually, before we do the returning cast, we should probably talk about Adam Driver.
Adam Driver, Kylo Ren,
who played
Ben
Kylo
Solo.
Ren. He was really good in the film. To be honest, like I kind of thought the first time you see him, he's in the mask, and I thought he was just going to keep that on through the film to have kind of continuity with Darth Vader, how he never removed his mask. But when he takes it off, you kind of see that, like, this is kind of just a kid. A pretty old kid. But, like, this is just a kid. And he does such a good job of portraying, like, he's kind of torn. Like, should he keep going down this path that he's chosen towards the dark side? Or should he go back?
Yeah, but I think that really added to it when he took off the mask, because it kind of made him more human. And it gives him more, ambiguity, because he's like... he's like talking to his grandfather, Darth Vader's burnt out helmet. he's just so like he doesn't know what to do. He's very torn.
He had one of the toughest moments in the film on the bridge with Harrison Ford. Like the moment when he's like got to kill him.
Every time I see it, I still scream like, "Don't go to the bridge, Han!" But you know he had to go and get his kid back. He had to go and get his son back. Yeah, even though it was all looking pretty bad.
But he does do a fantastic job of acting, and you really do feel him as a villain. Like, you really think this guy is pretty evil.
He does work very well, and I was worried because he is in the Lena Dunham show Girls, and he plays Hannah's boyfriend in that, and I knew him from that, and I was kind of like, can I really accept him as a villain? And he did. He was just superb, because he's good in that, and he's good in Star Wars as well.
At the start, you're not taking him too seriously, because he's like he keeps attacking stuff with his lightsaber and going.
But to be fair, he's pretty badass in the first scene. Like, he comes down the planet, stops a laser
when
bolt.
he has the mask on, he is, and then he takes it off and just has a temper tantrum like twice, and you're just like, this can't be their villain, surely.
That adds
Darth Vader had the cool, like, he was always.
I don't know.
Calm.
I think Adam Driver played it pretty calm, and throughout it, really, it was pretty. I mean, he did get emotional, but I mean that's part of being in the Sith. Really, he's got to be quite emotional.
But I suppose, like, showing that anger, like, later on, if you're going to remember that, and I guess in the next film, if he goes for a more kind of cool approach, like, he's really kind of.
I think he played it really cool. He was always talking. He was pretty soft spoken, and he sounded good. And he was, when he had to be evil, he was evil. I mean, he did murder his dad on a bridge.
That's true.
And I mean, he isn't complete. His training isn't complete. That's kind of established too. Yeah, he's not a full.
Probably that's just me comparing to the original. I mean, he's got a lot to live up to, trying to live up to Darth Vader.
You've kind of got to be stroppy. You've kind of got to be a stroppy team.
I mean, no one's really going to live up to Darth Vader. He's like the greatest villain ever created, probably in a film.
But you look at the prequels, and Anakin was just a bit stroppy too, and it's just part of being.
Yeah, I mean, at least this series of films...
It's a struggle between the light and the dark.
I mean, this series of films like has a villain in Kylo Ren that you can really believe in, whereas the prequels had a few villains, and like none of them I really felt kind of came close to Darth Vader. Where Kylo Ren kind of does, you do feel like this is a worthy villain to replace Darth Vader. The returning cast, we had Harrison Ford back doing a fantastic job, I thought.
Yeah, he was great. He was great, and it was humorous, and he was still back to his old smuggling ways.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was phoning it in at all.
No.
Like, he seemed like he was having such a great time.
I seen an interview with J.J. Abrams, and he was like, "Yeah, Harrison Ford." He didn't call him Han. I don't think he calls him Han.
They're not that familiar with
No,
each other.
well, maybe they are, but I'm sure he probably prefers Harrison. But yeah, he was amazing on set, and he was really good with the younger actors, and he was just like, he was so happy to be back. Maybe I would say
it's one of those things. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never met Harrison Ford. Like, he might. It's just you kind of get the impression sometimes when you see him, like, he just doesn't enjoy being there sometimes. But I suppose, like, when he's on interviews and things, maybe he doesn't. Like, I wouldn't enjoy, like, doing interview after interview, doing the same questions and answers.
he was very good on screen, and that was the main thing.
Yeah, like,
he came back and he was really good.
Just amazing. Like, you wouldn't think, like, the time had passed from the original Star Wars. It's like he is giving the same Harrison Ford Han Solo performance.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's Han Solo back again.
Yeah.
It's not like it's
he's
Harrison
back
Ford
again,
doing...
and he's immediately gone. But yeah, it was nice to have him back for one.
Yeah, he was killed off pretty quickly.
Well, not pretty. I mean, he had the whole movie.
Yeah,
but yeah, I would.
He didn't last for like movie 2 or 3.
I'm upset about it. I'm still. I mean,
a lot of
people
knew that was coming because Harrison Ford wanted to be killed off.
He wanted to be killed in Return of the Jedi. His character, not Harrison Ford.
And I think the writer even like kicked that idea around with him, and then they decided not to go for it. So anyone who kind of knew that story was probably guessing like, yeah, they're probably going to do it pretty early on.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was hoping it wouldn't happen.
But that was the thing with me, is like, would he be so keen to get gone that he like wouldn't even be in this movie very much, or if he was, he wouldn't be very into it.
But I mean, the minute he got to the bridge, I'm still emotionally scarred.
You had Peter Mayhew back as Chewbacca, who got a lot of screen time, more so than
the most Chewie I've ever seen.
Yeah, maybe Chewie will actually get a medal.
Yeah,
in this film.
Yeah.
Sadly overlooked in the other films.
Yeah, it was good to see Chewie back, and there was a lot of screen time for Chewie. You had Carrie Fisher back as General Organa, not Princess Leia. Well, she's still
General Organa.
She'll always be royalty.
The Max von Sydow character actually says at the beginning she'll always be royalty.
Always be royalty. Yeah. And then you had
Mark Hamill for about 5 minutes at the end of the film.
Not even 5, but I mean, a lot of people weren't happy he didn't speak, but I think that really added to it. Because I mean, he's sitting there on a mountaintop looking like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's what you really need. And it sets up perfectly.
There was so much in this movie, and it's a pretty long movie. I don't know how long it is, but it
didn't feel long. I wasn't bored in it.
But they fit a lot into this movie. Like you couldn't have really put another like 15-20 minutes of Mark Hamill at the end of Luke Skywalker.
No, it wouldn't have made sense.
I think it ended at the perfect time, like, because you'd had the big battle. Like, one of the problems with a lot of films these days, they go on like long after whatever they wanted to achieve has been achieved. It's like the original Star Wars. They destroy the Death Star, award ceremony, credits. Yeah. You don't need to keep rolling and like, let's see what these people are doing.
I think it worked perfectly. Like, JJ done a good job of it.
Yeah, it was like as soon as the thing's done, you're literally like a 10-minute wrap-up of like them coming back to the base and then her going off to meet Luke Skywalker.
Will we do what we liked and what we didn't like? Good and bad.
Let's go for it. There was a lot of good in this movie. Like we mentioned earlier, it really is back to like the original Star Wars atmosphere. Kind of a good like adventure story. Like the prequels, I know like George Lucas was trying to do something different with them and do more of like the Senate and make it more of maybe a political thriller rather than just like the good old action films. But I think that's what drew people into Star Wars, that it was a good old action film, that it had like the cowboys and Indians vibe or the samurai vibe. Like he mixed so many things together, but the main driving force of it, that it was this hero's quest and the action story. And this is like right back to that. Like you have good guys, bad guys. It's so easy to, like right off the bat, you can see like, okay, these are the bad guys. These are the good guys. I know exactly where I am and who I'm supposed to be cheering for here.
I just thought it's got a superb villain, really good villain, Kylo Ren. The comedy I loved, BB-8, how they introduced the Millennium Falcon back. I really liked that. There's loads of comedy in it. It was just very well written, and they had Lawrence Kasdan back, who wrote Empire and Return of the Jedi. So maybe that's why it kind of has a nostalgic feel. And also, JJ's a huge fan of Star Wars, so he's going to
also
do a lot
like
of callbacks.
worthy of mention. J.J. Abrams' direction was really good.
Yeah.
Like we said about like the blood on the mask at the start, like some of the like not things that you probably notice, but they're not kind of pushed in your face. It's like subtle things that he did, which were just like, oh, that's incredible. Like the one of my favorite parts was at the very beginning. I think it's in the trailer as well, when they're driving, like going through the desert, and you just see an Imperial cruiser that's like crashed in the background, and like it's not mentioned, no one draws attention to it, but you just kind of see it and think, oh, that's like a perfect visual representation of like the fall of the Empire.
Yeah,
and like again, like. It doesn't have to be told through dialogue. He's a great, like, visual storyteller. So, like, with the blood on the mask, we were saying, yeah, that's all you need. No one needs to, like, talk about that or draw attention to it, but you see it and know exactly, like, what's happened. Yeah. That he's suddenly had that moment of realization that, yeah, this is not right, what we're doing. I thought, like... Yeah, again with the cinematography, like the locations they chose for this were fantastic. I know a lot of it was filmed like around the UK, America, and I think it was UAE for like the desert scenes.
Yeah.
But again, like just the places they chose to film it were just like so good. And also, like we were saying, like there's not as much CG, so this was all like done on location mostly, like the outdoor stuff, and you really appreciate it. Like when you've seen CG stuff, you really appreciate them actually being somewhere. Like, oh, they're actually in a real location doing this.
Well, when they go and meet Maz Kitana, they go into the bar or the cantina, and apparently, like everything in that shot is all like puppets, and you can really touch it. There's no CG characters in that bar, apart from Maz herself.
Yeah,
which we'll talk about later.
That was the thing with the Mos Eisley scene. Like, yeah, when the original films came out, obviously you changed it later, but like a lot of those were puppets. They would have all probably been puppets in the 1970s. Yeah. And Yoda, like the original Yoda, having the puppet, like I know like that puppet might be slightly creaky when you see it, and you can tell like it's a puppet, but like it's actually there. Like Mark Hamill actually had that puppet with him when he was training, and you appreciate that because it's like, oh, that really is a character. He really is there.
Yeah, it works better.
Yeah, do you want to talk about some of the negative things? Cause...
I'm not finished what I like yet, though.
Okay.
I thought like it was good that it was back to kind of very kind of good and evil kind of split down the middle. You've got like the New Republic and the First Order, and I like that.
Yeah, it's a very clear cut story.
The new characters were amazing. I thought Daisy Ridley was fantastic. She was like the best of them all in that department. It was quite emotional. I liked when Han and Leia got back together. You know, that was quite an emotional moment.
Yeah.
There was a lot of emotions through it. It was a very emotional movie, I thought. But yeah, Rey was the best. And I liked that Rey was more the star, whereas like to begin with, when I first seen the trailers and stuff, it was more, I had more feeling that it was going to be Finn the Stormtrooper was going to defect from the First Order and become a Jedi, which he may still do, I don't know. But like, I like the fact that it was Rey and it was Daisy Ridley. That is more the kind of Jedi.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people like big Star Wars fans talk about like, did this mess with the kind of lore of the universe? In that, like, Finn's using the lightsaber, and a lot of people thought that was just a Jedi thing, that only Jedis could use it. But in this film, it's just more like, oh, the lightsaber's just a weapon, anyone could pick it up and use it.
Yeah.
Even though in the originals, I think the reason people thought that is in the originals, I don't think you ever see someone use a lightsaber who is not a Jedi.
Well, to be fair, there's not a lot of lightsabers just lying around. There's not lightsabers just kicking about to be picked up and swung about. So maybe that's something to do with it. But I really liked the Stormtrooper screaming traitor. He was a star for me. I liked him because he's got these...
The standout role of the film.
Oh yeah, he was fantastic. I don't know who he was, but yeah, having the kind of the blocker, the lightsaber blocker, I don't know what you call it.
Oh
but,
yeah,
that little battle, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren's mixed feelings, I like that. I thought added a lot to the character. When he took off the mask, made him more human.
Yeah.
And when he's because when he took off the mask and starts talking to Rey, it's kind of, you see he's kind of conflicted almost. But he's still like a good bad guy, and it added to it as well. You know, when he took off the mask, I thought that worked really well. Everything looked and felt real. I thought it was just better. It gets more back to the original kind of Star Wars before it was all CGI. I really liked the blood in the Stormtroopers' face. We went over that. The dog fights were really good. I thought I added a lot to it too. Like the Millennium Falcon being chased on Jakku, that worked really well, and the X-Wings coming overhead later on. I thought that was all really good stuff.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about that. Like, there are a couple like X-Wing fights in this thing, but
X-Wing TIE Fighters, yeah.
But they're not like the focus, because while they're going on, there's other stuff going on. So they're kind of cutting back and forth from it. But they are well done. What you see of them,
they really looks good. There's lots of Force used in it, which is good. You know, there's a lot more kind of Jedi stuff going on. And Han's winter coat, which we all loved. I know you loved the fact that you saw Han Solo in a possible coat that resembles a coat he wore in Hoth.
Yeah, that was one of the good things about this. Like some of the nostalgic winks to the old films. Like I said, with the crashed Imperial cruiser, Han's coat is such a small thing. But when they're on the snow planet at the end, he gets handed this coat, and it looks like the same blue coat that he wore on Hoth.
Yeah,
and it's just. Yeah, they don't even mention that. They're not like, oh, it's your old coat. But
it's kind of hinted to. There's a couple of coat references, you know.
Yeah,
Chewie's giving him the coat, or Finn's giving him the coat at the end. I can't remember.
But it's just that it's more just that kind of like you notice it and they're like, all right, that's that coat that he wore.
People went mad for the coat.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of things like that that I felt like J.J. Abrams felt like he had to get back in. It's like C-3PO just kind of pops in, says a couple lines. He's not really involved, but I think people were like, if he wasn't there, they would have been like, oh, where was 3PO? Where was R2-D2?
Well, we do what we don't like.
Let's go into what we didn't like. The main criticism I think a lot of other people have mentioned as well was that it was too similar to Episode 4 and 5, and they would have liked this just to go a totally new direction. The main thing, I think, was the Death Star, the Star Killer base at the end. It was like... Not only did it follow a similar trajectory to the other films, but it also kind of ended at a similar point with destruction of the Starkiller base.
Yeah, I didn't love that. I thought just stop building Death Stars, just come up with something new. I mean, it was an impressive thing, and they even poked fun at themselves with the hologram, but I didn't love that.
Yeah,
I also didn't like why is Supreme Leader Snoke CG. I didn't like that at all. And why was he a giant hologram? I didn't like that at all. But Andy Serkis, a bit of Lord of the Rings stuff.
In the originals, I guess you just had the head, which was like the Emperor's head.
Yeah, you had the Emperor.
Was it head and shoulders?
Oh, you had the mini Emperor on a thing. You know, it was. But I mean, it was just the large. There was people when I come out of the film. There was people that were worried that there was a race of giants.
I think it was
that nobody had mentioned.
I think it was the lighting of it as well. When you see the mini Emperor, nobody is thinking like, "Oh, is he really that small?" Or when you see the tiny Leia out of R2, you're not thinking, "Oh, it's a mini Princess Leia," because it's shimmering as well and blue, so you can kind of say, "Oh, that's a hologram." And the Emperor, you're always like, "Oh, it's a hologram."
Not everybody thought that. At the time of the film, people were. I come out of it and people were like, "Why is there a race?"
In the original.
No, I mean, the one we're talking about, the one we're reviewing.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the original, you knew it was a hologram, you could see it shimmering.
Yeah.
But in this new one, because of the lighting, at first, I mean, I was like, to be fair, until after the film when someone said, yeah, that's a hologram, I just thought it was a giant guy. A bit like Thanos, just sitting on a huge guy. Mm. And I was kind of like, why were these giants not mentioned in the other films? Why did we never see them?
But I think they're maybe going for Snoke as a tiny guy, and he's a horrible looking dude. Whatever's happened to him, there's a lot of theories about who he is. We won't get into that because that could.
I would love it if that when they do actually meet him, he's just the size of Yoda.
Yeah, I mean it could be something like that
because
he's a very scarred. What did you say? Like the other day, like a bruised testicle.
Walnut, a bruised testicle.
Yeah, so I mean he's got a lot. He's got a lot going against him. That probably would make you turn to the dark side if everybody called you a bruised testicle and a scarred walnut. Poe's a good pilot. What I didn't like is every time we've seen Poe, he's the best pilot in the universe. Yeah. Just let the man's pilot and speak for itself.
He didn't have a lot of character development, and I think people had to keep mentioning that because that was his main character trait.
And also he had to blow up Starkiller base later on. But he had to help. So I mean, you had to be he's a good pilot.
I suppose, they had to make sure you understood, that's how he's able to do it, because he is such a good pirate.
He's the best in the universe.
On that kind of theme, one thing that I thought was a little weak in the film was some of the character development. I mean, For example, Poe, we've mentioned, comes in early on, is not really seen again, except for a couple of times, and flying around he's seen. One character we haven't mentioned at all in this review yet was Captain Phasma, played by Gwendolyn Christie, who was like the chrome stormtrooper that you might have seen in the trailers. Again, like, she's set up as like, she's above Finn's character at the very beginning. Like, she's the head of the stormtrooper unit, but she's just not really used. And then they do see her again and flush her down the garbage chute. And that's it.
She does have the odd moment in between that, but yeah, she's not in it enough to the amount of time that was spent people discussing that character beforehand. And the amount like in the trailer, it was built up. It was like, who's in the Chrome Stormtrooper? What's going on? And then Harley in it. Yeah. And it was like,
I mean, this is really a criticism based on, like, they were trying to fit so much in there that they didn't have time to develop some characters. Is
that Captain Phasma gone now? Because she got stuffed down a garbage chute, and is that her?
Yeah, but this is the thing where it's like, Poe didn't have much time. I mean, Leia wasn't in it a huge amount, or Luke, but I imagine, like, they're going to be in it more in the next film. Or they were just intended to be there for, like, nostalgia value, that they just wanted to put them back in.
I think, like, it's just the passing the torch to new characters, and I think, like, it's done that well.
What was it about Maz Kanata that you didn't like? Because you said you weren't a fan of her.
Oh, yeah, well, I was a fan of her. I really liked the character, and I really liked the actress that played her, but I felt like I didn't like that the CG. I felt like that could have been... They could have just let...
Oh, yeah, could have done puppetry.
Or something, yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, it's a very small criticism, because I liked Maz, the character, and I liked... And she had a thing for Chewie, you know, who can blame the woman. C-3PO's red arm. I really wanted an explanation. I demand an explanation for C-3PO's red arm in Episode 8. I have no way of getting my answers, but
people say, like, that's the reason they like Boba Fett, because they said, like, when you see him and his arm is all scarred, people are like, what? It's like, what? Why is it scarred? Like, what's happened? But it's, like, not explained. But they just like it.
Scarred arm?
In the original trilogy, when you see Boba Fett, like, he has, like, his armor is, like, scuffed, and there's, like, the paint's, like, coming off it.
All right.
So, like, if he was pristine, people like that...
scarred armor?
Yeah, scarred armor, not scarred arm.
I was like, I don't remember a single bit of scarred armor.
He has, like, scuffed or scarred, like, armor, the paint's chipped off, and it's, like, never explained, like, hey, Boba Fett...
I don't need an explanation.
Why did that happen?
I don't need an explanation from Boba Fett, because Boba Fett is amazing, but why C-3PO brought up his arm? You must be noticing my red arm. Didn't tell us why. Boba Fett never come up and was like, oh, Han, I'm going to capture you. What about my scuffed armour? That was a totally different... It's C-3PO's red arm, I demand answers.
Well, I just like those things, because it expands the unit, because it's like, it makes you think, like, okay, things are actually happening in this universe, even when there are not films being made about it.
No, I liked it. I just...
It's like, yeah, if this film had come out and, like, all the characters were, like, exactly as they had been 30 years ago, we'd be like, all right, have they just been doing nothing in the intervening time?
No, I'm assured C-3PO's been...
He's just piqued your curiosity.
Yeah, he's come on there with his red arm, and I'm like, what's going on?
But, like, he has always been, like, taken apart in, like, the other films. Is he not, like,
he's got silver legs, he gets destroyed in Cloud City, he gets put back together, he's backwards. He's had a tough life. He's working in Jabba's palace. I mean, yeah, he's had a lot going on. He's built by Anakin Skywalker. You know, that's just kind of glossed over. His memory's wiped. He's had a tough existence. What about the future of what it says for setup? What about that?
Yeah, I thought it was, like, a good setup. Like you said, like, the end of the film really ends on a kind of cliffhanger note with Luke Skywalker and, like, hooks you into the next film.
I loved that he didn't speak. I don't know about you. I loved that he didn't speak.
Yeah, I liked it. It was, like, a fantastic scene, and, like, he just turns around, and it's one of those moments between him and Rey where you're like, what are these two thinking? Like, what's going on here? What's going to happen? And then, like, cuts to credits.
And he just looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
He's fully in Obi-Wan Kenobi mode.
I mean, that's the thing, like, because now... I mean, you kind of saw him go on the hero's journey in the original, but now you've seen him as, like, old Luke Skywalker. Now it's like the journey is, like, truly complete. Like, he is the Jedi master, legendary warrior figure now. And
it also sets up who's Rey's family in the future films. That's a big thing. Like, who abandoned her? Why did they abandon her? Why did Luke disappear and look for the Jedi Temple? Yeah. What happened with Kylo Ren and Luke that
Yeah, they set up a lot of plot threads in this film, and that's one thing that, like, I was saying about they rushed a lot of things, but I think they were all, like, the beginning of threads, which are going to expand out in the next film. So I think they had to kind of squeeze a lot in here, so there was setup, so things didn't just happen in the next film that you're
that's the whole point of this film,
no
was like to get people back into it and to set up the next.
But I imagine the next film is just going to be like her training with Luke Skywalker, and kind of fighting the First Order, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. And also, why was R2-D2 off? Why did he waken up when Rey was there? And why did Luke switch R2 off and power him down? Because you had that scene in the flashback where Rey first gets the lightsaber, and she has all this flashbacks, and you've got Alec Guinness's voice, you've got Ewan McGregor's voice, you've got loads of other characters.
Yeah, that was a kind of weird, trippy sequence.
I loved that. I thought it was really good. I liked that.
It just had some kind of weird dream.
Yeah, but she's like, it gives a lot to it, I thought, and it really sets up. You've got Luke's like robotic hand on R2, like powering him down and stuff.
I mean, one thing I'm hoping for in this, in the sequel, is that they go to some different planets, like just like something varied. Like I know, like
it's new planets that went to now. It's just like they're similar to the other planets.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were similar to others,
but they're still new planets.
Yeah, but kind of like when they did Episode 1. People hate it, but when they went to the Gungans and they had the underwater city, I was like, oh, we've not really seen the underwater city before.
Yeah, there was Naboo, and there was...
Or like in Empire, you have Cloud City, so it's like, oh, we've never seen like a city in the clouds before. I mean, I don't know what they could come up with, but just something that's like, I've never seen that before.
Something different.
Yeah, because that's what sci-fi, I think, is all about as well. Well, this is kind of like a fantasy / sci-fi, but yeah, it's kind of like... think of things that like you couldn't dream of or couldn't imagine.
Would we recommend it? We don't really need to do. Would we recommend it because it's been out for a long, long time and everybody's seen it, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we would recommend it.
Yeah,
if you like Star Wars.
Like I know this is like come out pretty recently, so you probably I don't know, probably kind of fresh in the memory. But like in terms of the other films, like where would you place this? There's like 6, so there's 7 films out now. Where would this rank?
I can't make
top 5.
I can't make that call at this point. Oh, it's definitely up there. I think. I mean, I've not seen it enough because I mean I've seen others multiple times. A lot of times. So like, yeah, I can't really. Yeah, it'll be up there.
It is kind of like Star Wars for a new generation.
Yeah. I mean, it worked really well, but I mean, I've only seen it. I need to see it a lot more.
Like I can imagine like if you were a kid in 1977 and went to see the original Star Wars. Would be similar to a kid going to see this today.
It's probably going to have the exact feelings.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. I think like you get a different impression from it if you're an older person who's grown up with the other films watching this, because then you've got like
it depends.
You're kind of comparing
it's total generational because there's people going that's seen it in 1977. There'll be people going that's seen Episode 1 in 1999, and it's just you've all got this because I mean for some people Episode 1 might have been the first one they saw. Yeah. So I mean, really, it's crossing generations.
Yeah, I could recommend this film. I think to just about anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, like it's a solid film.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be like a Star Wars geek. That's the thing. I mean, all the Star Wars films, they're not. It's not a series. Which, I mean, there's a lot of spin-off books and, like, games and, like, there's a lot of things you can kind of research about this and go deep into, like, the histories of characters and things. But I think all of the Star Wars films are made with an intent to, like, reach as many people as possible. Like, you don't have to know a lot about anything. You could go into this film blank, not even really knowing who Luke Skywalker was, and still enjoy this film. Because from the text scroll at the beginning, you're like, I get it.
If you do go into it and you don't know that, but the end of it, you're going to want it as well. That's the thing too, because it's
like it's a film. It's a film kind of half between like made for the fans, but also made for like that new audience. So I think that's why it's had such huge appeal and been successful. Because they're not just like, let's just make this for the fans. It'll be incomprehensible to anyone who doesn't know Star Wars. But this is really like just, you could go watch it and be like, that was an amazing film.
And also, crucially, it had Admiral Akbar.
We didn't have time to talk about Admiral Akbar, unfortunately. Everyone's favourite from the other films.
Admiral Akbar, so yeah, just go and see it. We highly recommend it.
Yeah.